The office smelled like new paint and artificial lemon sharp sterile full of promises you didn't yet know would come with a price. You walked in on your first day with crisp confidence, your shoes echoing too loudly in the marble-floored lobby. You were proud to be here. This job was the golden ticket. A fast-growing tech firm, generous salary, flexible hours. Everything had finally lined up. You'd earned your place not just with your resume, but with grit. You'd done late nights and coffee-breathed interviews and whispered mantras to yourself before walking into meetings where everyone already knew each other's last names and alma maters. But here you believed was the fresh start. No ghosts, no ceilings. Just you and your work. Until you met her. She was introduced in passing. This is Riley, she's part of the product innovation team. No mention that she was also the CEO's daughter. That fact reached you from a smirking coworker later over lunch. Dropped like it was common knowledge. Riley had the kind of effortless confidence that comes from knowing you can't be fired. She wore $1,000 sneakers to meetings and had the kind of smile that flickered a split second too late. At first you thought it was in your head, a slight uptick of her eyebrow whenever you spoke. The way she dismissed your ideas, only to repeat them louder an hour later. When she gave you a tour of the building, she never once said welcome. She just pointed out which printers jammed the most and which bathrooms were private enough for crying. Still, you held your tongue. It was early, you were new, you'd been the outsider before, and it always smoothed out. But the tension grew like mold behind wallpaper. She started skipping over your name when giving credit on projects, asking for things she knew you didn't yet have access to, watching just long enough to see you scramble. Once when you were out sick, she volunteered to cover your deliverables and then casually told your boss you were behind schedule. It was subtle warfare, one smile, one whisper, one email at a time. You stayed late to catch up. You volunteered for tasks others passed on. You played nice. Meanwhile, she left early for yoga or rooftop brunches and still managed to be in every important room, every photograph on the company Slack. You watched how others gravitated toward her not just because of her surname, but because challenging her meant challenging the power structure itself. It wasn't just politics. It was survival. One night, as you cleaned up the meeting room alone, you caught your reflection in the glass. You looked tired, not just from the work, but from shrinking, from trying to occupy less space so you wouldn't trigger her alarms. You didn't want to fight. You just wanted peace, a chance to prove yourself without someone clipping your wings mid-flight. But Riley wanted you gone. She never said it out loud. She didn't need to. It was in the way she reassigned your tasks without asking in the oops, I forgot you were included Slack threads. It was in the way she called you kiddo in meetings, even though you were 2 years older. You dealt with difficult people before, managers who micromanaged, clients who ghosted. But this was a chess game, and she'd already moved 2 pawns before you even stepped onto the board. Still, you weren't naive. You didn't rise through the ranks of your last company because you folded easy. You began watching her the way she moved through the office, who she lingered with when her emails slowed. You didn't react, not yet, but the seed was planted. She thought she was playing a solo game. She had no idea what you'd endured to get here, and she had no idea that you were far, far harder to erase than you looked. It starts with coffee. That's how most quiet wars do. You're standing in the break room, half awake, pouring yourself a cup when Riley strolls in all flowy hair and curated nonchalance. She reaches for a mug just as your hand does, and instead of stepping back like a normal person, she lets her fingers brush yours, then laughs. Wow, eager much, she says, her tone playful on the surface, but dipped in acid. You blink, smile tightly. Let her have the mug, let her think it's a win. But inside something shifts. She's not just territorial. She's performing, and you're the unwilling scene partner. From that day on, it's like she's everywhere, not physically, but in the invisible film that stretches over everything you do. If you pitch an idea, she frowns slightly before the team can respond. If someone praises your work, she follows up with, "Oh, didn't I already suggest something like that last quarter?" No one calls it out. They smile politely and look away. Because that's the trap. She's just vague enough, just charming enough to seem harmless. Then comes the meeting. A product update review with the leadership team. You'd worked late all week fine-tuning the prototype report. It's your chance to finally show what you're made of. You're confident. You walk in tall. You start your presentation. And halfway through, Riley interrupts. "Wait, that data isn't current, is it?" she says. tapping her perfectly manicured finger on the screen. Because I just pulled numbers this morning and they were really different. Heads turn, you freeze. You know you updated the data, you double-checked, triple-checked. But when you look at the slide, somehow it's wrong. Wrong figures, outdated version. You feel your stomach drop. You try to recover, pivot mid-presentation, explain what might have gone wrong. Everyone nods, but the tension is thick now. You finish. There's polite applause. And Riley gives you that same unreadable smile, the one that flickers a second too late. Later that afternoon, after the room clears, you sit staring at your laptop, digging through old versions. You find the answer. Your presentation file was overwritten by someone who had editing access. Someone who the logs show made changes exactly 15 minutes before the meeting. And only 2 people had that access. You and Riley. You feel heat crawl up your spine. Not rage, not yet. Just clarity. She's not just playing a game. She's setting the rules, stacking the deck, and dealing your cards for you, all while pretending to be your peer. You close your laptop. You stand. You don't say a word to anyone, but your mind is no longer clouded by confusion. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't insecurity. This was strategy. Later that week, you find her in the lunchroom again. She's holding court with a few coworkers, laughing about something, legs crossed like she owns the floor. When you walk in, the laughter drops a few decibels. Riley glances up at you, then back to her admirers. You know what they say, she murmurs loudly enough to carry not everyone's cut out for this pace. You pour your tea. You don't flinch. You don't bite. You meet her gaze for half a second, smile calmly, and walk out. Because you've seen this play before. You know the type who can't stand not being the smartest person in the room. The ones who confuse cruelty with competence. The ones who think the crown they inherited means they earned the throne. But you're not here to dethrone her. You're here to survive. And when survival looks like kindness, like silence, like backing away from a fight, so be it. Let her underestimate you. Let her believe she's winning. Because the most dangerous thing you can give someone like Riley is the illusion of control. You take the long way back to your desk, the corners of your mouth curving slightly. Not because anything's been fixed yet, but because now you're watching her back, and she doesn't even know it. The next time it happens, it's public, calculated. You're in the middle of a Monday stand-up, 12 people gathered in a too-small conference room, the air thick with caffeine and vague dread. Everyone's reporting progress. You're confident again, new sprint, clean handoff. And you finally pushed out the feature the design team had been stalling. Then it happens. Riley tilts her head, smiling as if she's about to compliment you, and says, "Hey, didn't we already scrap that feature last sprint?" Silence. Someone coughs. You glance around the room, uncertain whether you misheard or misunderstood the brief entirely. You glance at the PM, who looks mildly confused, and then back at Riley. Her smile is placid. Too calm. You fumble. "It was approved again last Thursday. The scope changed." She shrugs. "That's weird. I don't remember that, but okay." The room doesn't explode. No one gasps. But a subtle shift happens. People look down, someone checks their phone. It's enough to plant doubt. Just a flicker. Just enough. Afterward, the PM quietly confirms you were right. Says he'll clarify things later. But by then, the damage is done. Riley never outright accused you of a mistake. She just suggested confusion. And confusion sticks like lint to reputation. You realize the genius of her approach. She never yells, never files complaints, never breaks a rule. She just bends things, bends reality until yours begins to ripple. That night, you skip dinner, sit on your balcony with a laptop in your lap and a cheap beer sweating beside you. You start digging, looking through old Slack threads, files, emails. Patterns emerge. The timing of her mistakes, the way her comments undermine, but don't accuse the cadence of her charm right after every slip-up. You're no longer dealing with a mean girl. You're dealing with a strategist. So you begin your own strategy. First, you forward critical project files to yourself. Store backups in a private encrypted folder. Second, you begin screen recording every major document edit you make, quietly, methodically. Not because you want to get her in trouble, because you're done being blindsided. The next morning, you arrive earlier than usual. Riley isn't in yet. You sit at her desk, not snooping, just watching, taking in her collection of designer pens, her meticulously color-coded calendar. Everything about her is pristine, except one thing, her ego. You've realized it's her weak spot. Not arrogance, but the need to be admired, to be untouchable, which makes you the perfect threat because you're competent, humble, and too quiet to be controlled. You hear her enter the office behind you, breezy and late as usual. "Oh wow," she says, seeing you there. "Planning on stealing my seat too." You smile, "Just returning a file you asked for." She blinks, "Didn't ask for one." You leave it vague, let her wonder if she forgot. You rise slowly, say nothing more, and walk back to your desk. The message lands. You're not a ghost, you're a presence. That afternoon, she tries to corner you again during a group brainstorm. Tosses out a passive jab about someone not understanding our customer personas. But this time, you're ready. Calmly, you share the exact data dates and user quotes behind your insight. Then gently you say, "Maybe you missed the updated report." Eyes turn. Someone nods. And for the first time, she looks unsure. You don't smile. Don't gloat. Just keep your voice smooth, your tone measured. Because winning here isn't about outsmarting her in public. It's about something subtler. Refusing to disappear. After the meeting, one of your teammates passes by your desk and mutters, "Nice save back there." You thank them, but you don't feel triumphant. You feel exhausted. You've spent weeks walking a tightrope, and you're just now realizing you might have to keep walking it a while longer. Because people like Riley don't stop when they're challenged. They escalate, and you're starting to understand something deeper, something uncomfortably honest. If you're going to survive her, you can't just be the better employee. You have to be the smarter player, and from now on you will be. You'd hoped HR might offer a lifeline. It was naive in retrospect. But when you scheduled the meeting, you still believed somewhere deep down that the system would work. That professionalism had rules. That ethics mattered. The office's HR rep Karen welcomed you in with a warm smile and one too many indoor plants. She nodded encouragingly as you explained your concerns. The sabotage, the public undermining the tampered presentation file. You laid it out clearly, calmly. You even brought documentation screenshots, file history logs. Slack messages that hinted at something coordinated. Karen listened. She took notes. She furrowed her brow and said things like, "That must be very frustrating, and thank you for bringing this to our attention." You felt hope. Until she asked, "Have you and Riley had a chance to talk about this directly?" The air cooled. Your stomach dropped. "I've tried," you said carefully. "She's not exactly open to feedback." Karen nodded, lips pursed in that HR way, as if she were internally balancing 1,000 potential liabilities. "She's the CEO's daughter," you added quietly, not as a complaint, just context. Karen's smile thinned. "Well, I wouldn't worry too much about that. But let's focus on solutions. Maybe we can set up a mediation session." Open communication is often the best remedy. A mediation, with someone who'd deliberately overwritten your presentation and smiled through the wreckage. You left the office feeling smaller than when you'd entered. Not because you hadn't been heard, but because you'd been politely dismissed. That's when it crystallized. You're not just fighting Riley. You're fighting the system that built her. And systems don't respond to emotion. They respond to evidence, outcomes, impact. So that's what you start focusing on. You stop trying to be liked. You start trying to be undeniable. You pull in double shifts not to impress, but to ensure your work is flawless, bulletproof. You volunteer for the most complex tasks, not because you crave glory, but because Riley avoids them, and you want territory she can't claim. Meanwhile, she watches, from her standing desk, from her corner of the all-hands meetings, from behind sunglasses during Friday morning stand-ups, as if she were the only one still half asleep from the night before. And when she sees you winning, she turns up the pressure. Emails marked urgent at 9 p.m. Sudden calendar invites where you're mysteriously removed at the last second. Subtle nudges to mutual coworkers. Are you sure that project was handled correctly? You feel it all tightening, the web, the whisper network. But you keep your head down. Because now you're playing for the long game. One night after another marathon coding sprint, you're about to shut down when your inbox pings. A message from someone in analytics, someone you barely know. Subject: You didn't hear this from me. Just thought you should know Riley's been digging into your access logs. No idea what she's trying to find, but heads up. You stare at the screen, the glow of the monitor illuminating your hands suddenly cold. So she's not just playing defense anymore. She's hunting. You reread the message. Then slowly, calmly, you open a fresh document. Title it Timeline of Events. And begin filling it in, day by day, incident by incident, backed by file logs, emails, screenshots. Not speculation. Proof. It feels strange building your own defense file. like becoming your own lawyer in a case no one has officially opened. But that's what survival is now. Quiet, methodical truth-gathering. You know she'll escalate. You know the system won't catch her until she's sloppy. But you'll be ready, because from now on, you're not hoping for fairness. You're preparing for impact. The sabotage this time is elegant. You're presenting a quarterly forecast to a senior stakeholder group, a big deal. The kind of opportunity you've been quietly earning for months. Everything is prepared. Your numbers are sharp, your slide deck polished, your talking points rehearsed to the breath. Then, as you click to the second slide, you freeze. The projections are wrong. The data columns don't match your reports. The year-end numbers are skewed, and in the lower corner of the slide, your name. You keep talking, keep presenting, keep your voice, even your face calm. But inside, your thoughts are sprinting. You know these numbers aren't yours. You ran them 5 times. You saved the file last night, double-checked it. This version is different. Subtly, but catastrophically. After the meeting, your director thanks you for owning the confusion gracefully. Says the team will need a revised version by end of day. You nod, smile, swallow it. Back at your desk, you dig into the file history. A shared drive log shows it was edited this morning by Riley. Of course, but she didn't leave fingerprints. Just enough tweaks to make your work look sloppy. Just enough to make it seem like your mistake. You stare at your screen. The quiet fury inside you doesn't scream, it sharpens. Because this wasn't just pettiness, this was career warfare. And she did it knowing you'd have to scramble to correct it, or else take the fall. Knowing HR wouldn't intervene. Knowing leadership wouldn't question the numbers so long as they looked close enough. You lean back in your chair, inhale deeply, and whisper, "Okay." Then you open your private folder, the one with every change, every version, every time-stamped backup. You export a clean copy of your original file. You forward it to your director with a short professional note. "Hi, please see the correct version of the forecast deck attached. Based on the file history, the version I presented this morning was modified after my final upload. Let me know if you'd like to discuss." You wait. A few hours later, your director replies, "Thanks, this clears things up. We'll use this version moving forward." No apology, no accusation, just a quiet correction. But you know what it means. You weren't crazy. They saw it. And Riley knows you know. That evening, as the office thins out, she passes your desk on her way to the elevator. She doesn't stop, just walks by, phone in hand, humming a tune. You don't look up, but you smile, because the rules just changed. She was counting on you playing scared, staying quiet, sinking under the weight of public embarrassment. But instead, you stayed still, precise, calm. You aren't playing her game anymore. You're playing your own. The next day, you arrive earlier than usual. No one's there yet, not even Riley. You make coffee, tidy your workspace, and print a hard copy of the file log. You tuck it into a folder. Leave it in your desk drawer just in case. When Riley walks in, her hair slightly damp, her eyes sweeping the room, you meet her gaze. "Hold it." She looks away first. And just like that, the balance tips. She's still dangerous. Still backed by nepotism and charm and legacy. But for the first time, you see it. She's worried. Not because of what you've done, but because of what you haven't said. Because silence, strategic, deliberate silence, is power. You're not here to confront her. You're here to outlast her. You never meant to talk to the janitor. It just happened, one of those accidental collisions where 2 lives brush past each other in a hallway. You'd stayed late again, running final checks on a product rollout. Riley had tried to push ahead early, and were headed to the vending machine for the world's saddest dinner, almonds and vending machine coffee. He was refilling the paper towel dispenser in the break room. Older guy. Quiet. Wore his name stitched on a patch over his chest, Frank. You nodded as you passed. He nodded back. Nothing special. But when you fumbled your coins and muttered, "Of course," under your breath, he chuckled softly. "She got to you too, huh?" You froze. Turned. He didn't look at you, just kept folding towels with slow, methodical hands. You stepped closer cautiously. "Who?" He gave a dry, quiet laugh. "The princess." It was said with no venom, just resignation. Like someone who'd seen the same fire overtake the same forest too many times. Frank straightened up. "You're not the first one she's buried," he said. "Just the first one smart enough to keep receipts." Your stomach tightened. You've seen her do this before. He looked you in the eye, and for a moment there was no janitor uniform, just a man who'd seen 100 kinds of ambition rot from the inside. "She doesn't like anyone who doesn't bow," he said. Doesn't care who gets stepped on as long as daddy never hears the scream. You leaned against the vending machine, the hum of it vibrating faintly through your spine. Why are you telling me this? He shrugged. Because I watched her ruin someone who was here before you. A woman named Kayla. Sharp. Honest. Lasted 6 months. She quit after Riley framed her for leaking internal data. Wasn't true, but no one listened. HR swept it. You swallowed. And you didn't say anything then. Frank smiled sadly. I mop floors. I don't get whistleblower immunity. But I remember, and I saw how you handled that presentation mess last week. You're not folding. You stare at him. Because suddenly, you aren't alone. Someone saw, someone knew. Frank put down the empty paper towel box. Just keep your eyes open. She always gets messier when she feels cornered. You thank him, quietly, sincerely. As he walks out of the break room, he glances back once. Don't let her get in your head, he says. It's not just your job she wants. It's your doubt. That night, you don't work late. You go home. You eat real food. You sit in silence, letting Frank's words roll through your mind like slow-moving thunder. Not just your job. Your doubt. It makes sense now why the jabs are never overt. Why the sabotage always dances just outside provability. She doesn't just want to break your career. She wants you to do it yourself. To question yourself. To trip on shadows until you stop trusting your own steps. But now you have a flashlight. You open your laptop and add a new tab to your timeline, Doc Witnesses. And under it you write, Frank Custodial, corroborated pattern of targeting other employees. You sit back, let your fingers fall from the keys. She's still coming, you know that. But she's no longer a mystery. She's a pattern. And you're finally learning how to read her. You stop reacting. Not because it doesn't hurt anymore, it does. Every passive dig, every fake smile, laced with venom, every twisted version of the truth still bruises. But now you don't let the bruises show. Instead, you become still. Still in meetings when she interrupts. Still in Slack channels when she forgets to tag you. Still when she walks by your desk just a little too slowly, like she's daring you to flinch. You've learned something critical, now she feeds on your reaction. Your protest gives her control. Your anger writes her script, so you start taking that script away. She sets traps. You leave them untouched. She sends a snarky message in a group chat, something like, "Not everyone's as fast as you, huh?" When you miss a deadline by 2 hours. You respond with thanks for your patience, final versions in your inbox. She wants tension. You give her professionalism. She wants drama. You give her data. And while you're doing that, you're collecting everything. Every email, every changelog, every project misstep you corrected quietly. You're no longer just surviving. You're building a case. Not a legal one, not yet. But something even more powerful in this world, an undeniable silent truth. You're also changing your posture, your tone, your rhythm. You speak slower in meetings. You ask questions that make her stumble, softball things she should know, but often doesn't. You wait until she answers, and you nod as if agreeing even when she's completely wrong. You don't argue anymore. You document. When she drops your name into blame, you respond with receipts. Not spitefully, calmly. Just enough to make people pause and think, wait, is she the problem? That's the real shift. People are starting to notice. One afternoon, your coworker James, the kind of guy who usually plays Switzerland, leans over during a break and says, "Hey, you handled that client mix-up really cleanly." I would have snapped. You nod, thank him, but inside something clicks. They're watching. Not just her, everyone. Noticing how she circles your work like a vulture. How often she's involved when something goes sideways. How often you clean it up quietly without gloating. She still holds influence. Still gets invited to all the leadership happy hours, still walks into rooms with the ease of inherited power, but her grip is slipping, because people are no longer sure she's the smartest person in the room. And you're becoming unavoidable. In one meeting, she tries to discredit your UX suggestions by quoting out-of-date user data. You pause, let her talk, then gently offer updated figures, user quotes, and A/B test results. Everyone listens. Riley goes quiet. You don't smile, don't twist the knife. You just let the silence carry your point. That night, as the office empties and the last printer hums in the background, you open your doc again. You title a new section, Patterns of Undermining. You list everything. 3 project files altered after submission. 5 Slack jabs documented. 2 documented corrections via email threads. 1 custodial witness corroborating a pattern of behavior. 4 colleagues now subtly offering support or validation. You read it back, not with pride, but with calm. Because this isn't revenge, it's clarity. The old you would have fought back, challenged her head on, maybe even lost your temper once or twice. But the version of you that's emerging now, you're surgical, controlled. She wants you to lose your footing, but your feet are planted, quiet, strong, rooted, and the deeper she digs her trap, the more you realize she's the one sinking. The betrayal comes wrapped in kindness. It starts with Olivia, marketing associate, always stylish, always laughing a little too loudly at Riley's jokes. You never trusted her, not fully, but she was harmless enough. Floated between departments, showed up to meetings with color-coded notebooks, and never seemed too interested in drama. So when she stops by your desk one morning, holding a Starbucks in one hand and her phone in the other, you brace yourself. "Hey," she says, lowering her voice. "This never happened. I wasn't here." You blink. "Sorry." She glances over her shoulder, then slides her phone onto your desk. On the screen is a series of screenshots, Slack messages from a private channel you've never seen. The usernames are real, the tone unmistakable. "Riley, God, I can't believe they're still here. Riley, I swear I've done everything but chain the door shut. Riley, one more slip up and they're toast. Trust me." You stare. "Where?" you whisper. Olivia snatches the phone back before you can ask more. "It's a closed group," she says. "She added me thinking I'd be cool with it. I wasn't." You study her for a second. "Why are you showing me this?" She shrugs. "I like people who work hard." You didn't deserve what she pulled with that forecast. And just like that, she's gone. You sit in stunned silence. The screenshots aren't just proof that Riley's been gunning for you. They're proof that she's been rallying others, quietly, jokingly, creating a back channel to mock and manipulate coworkers. A space where cruelty is coded in irony, where she lays out strategy to ruin reputations with emoji-punctuated precision. It's all there, not just targeted digs at you, but others too. Private jokes about the intern's stutter, mean-spirited nicknames for senior staff, mocking memes of department heads. You close your eyes, let the weight of it settle in your chest. Then you breathe, because now you're not just responding to suspicion. You're standing on hard, cold truth. And you're not angry. You're steady. You forward the screenshots to your personal email file, them in your now thick digital folder. You open a new section in your timeline, internal harassment evidence. But more than that, something shifts. For weeks, you've been focused on surviving Riley. Now, you're preparing to expose her. Not with rage, not with vengeance. With facts. The next few days, you keep your head down. Don't mention Olivia. Don't change your tone. You let Riley feel safe. And she does. She loosens. You catch her smiling, more laughing, louder. She tosses around your name in meetings again, not to praise you, but to imply you're still learning. She even starts dropping vague hints about someone on thin ice, hoping to provoke. You don't flinch. You thank her for feedback. You offer follow-ups. You kill her with calm. And then quietly you start lining things up. You reach out to the intern she mocked. Ask if they've ever felt excluded or harassed. They hesitate, then nod. You pull your weekly analytics report and slip a section in about workplace culture feedback trends. You meet with HR again, this time not to complain, but to ask some questions about Slack moderation and data retention policies. You're not laying traps. You're laying foundations. Because now, for the first time, you're not alone. And Riley, she has no idea the floor beneath her is shifting. You never expected to find a secret Slack channel. You weren't even looking for it, just cleaning up old workspace permissions for a cross-departmental project, when you noticed something odd, an archived channel with a strange, sarcastic name, Squad Goals Beta. You clicked expecting old memes or outdated project chatter. Instead, you found venom, dozens of messages. The earliest 1 month old, the latest just 3 days ago. The members, Riley, Olivia, and a small circle of what you now recognized as her enablers, mostly mid-tier employees, who floated on charm, proximity, and the hope that favor with her meant career acceleration. You scroll. There you are. Your name mentioned in posts that start as jokes, then spiral into coordinated digs. Screenshots of your deliverables marked up with crude annotations. Mocked Slack messages. Even voice clip transcriptions taken out of context. It's mean, it's methodical, it's planned. Riley leads it all. Riley just sent another oops file to their deck. Riley, let's see how long it takes them to catch this one. Riley, reminder, if HR asks, we're supporting them, not criticizing. You stopped breathing for a second. You weren't paranoid. You weren't imagining things. You were under siege. And here was the blueprint. For a moment, your hands shake. Not with anger, with the surreal realization that you'd been gaslit for weeks. That this wasn't insecurity, it was warfare. And Riley wasn't chaotic. She was systematic. You begin downloading screenshots, export logs, member lists, a time-stamped archive of every cruel word, every digital footprint. You don't panic, you catalog. Then buried between mocking comments and faux strategic gossip, you see a line that hits harder than the rest. Riley, even if they figure this out, nobody will believe them. I'm untouchable. You sit back, let it sink in. That's the crack in the wall. Arrogance. She believes her position protects her, that no one will call her out, that she's built a fortress of charm, family name, and plausible deniability. But she made a mistake. She left a door unlocked. And you walked through it. You don't act immediately. You're too smart for that. Instead, you keep your behavior exactly the same. You keep delivering excellent work. You keep your tone neutral. You keep playing the grateful team player card she thinks you've been holding. But you also do something new. You start whispering into the right ears. You mention to a compliance manager in passing, "Hey, weird question, are private Slack channels audited for workplace bullying?" You ask IT about internal data retention policies casually. I'm helping a teammate archive old channels. You begin creating friction. Nothing direct, just enough. And at night, you refine your folder. You title the top doc escalation package. Inside it, screenshots from the secret Slack. Olivia's screenshots from her private chat. Frank's corroboration. Email tampering evidence. Your original forecast deck with metadata logs. Anonymous feedback notes from coworkers who've quietly joined your corner. You realize you're not just holding a case. You're holding a mirror, and when the company looks into it, they won't just see Riley. They'll see the culture she's infected. Still, you wait. Because timing is everything. Riley doesn't know that every message she sends now, every smirk, every calculated slight, is one more nail in her own coffin. She still thinks she's dancing. She doesn't hear the trapdoor creaking open beneath her. The unraveling begins at a party. Not in a courtroom, not across a boardroom table, no. Riley starts to lose everything at a lakeside company retreat with catered tacos, team building games, and far too much tequila. It's late, past midnight. The fire pit's dying down, the music's soft, and most of the managers have retired to their private cabins. You're standing off to the side, half a drink in hand, watching the stars bounce off the still lake water. And Riley's on her third margarita, draped over a patio chair with 3 junior developers, clinging to her every word, like she's a prophet in sneakers. You wouldn't normally care, but then she says your name, loudly. And seriously, she slurs. You have to admire the determination, like they just keep showing up. No matter how many speed bumps I plant. You freeze? One of the developers laughs nervously. Wait, you mean you're messing with them on purpose? Riley snorts. I mean, yeah. What else am I supposed to do? They don't get hints. You'd think by now they'd just quit. Your chest tightens. It's not just petty anymore. It's public. You step back, barely breathing, just far enough to glance around. And there he is, Andrew, one of the VPs, standing in the shadows near the outdoor bar, watching her. He doesn't say anything, just turns, walks away. But you see it, the flicker of realization. Riley doesn't notice. She's too deep in her performance, talking about her genius workaround for getting you off the last project, laughing like it's a sitcom. But the damage is done. Not to you, to her, because now someone from the top has heard it. And not in a Slack message, not in a vague complaint. In her own words, no deniability, no interpretation, just her voice bragging about sabotage. The next morning you wake up early, not out of habit, out of clarity. You pack, dress, and head to the breakfast tent before most of the team is awake. Andrew's there. He doesn't look surprised to see you, just lifts his coffee in a small knowing salute. You walk over. Morning, you say, voice light. He gestures to the chair across from him. You sit. No games. You pull out your tablet, open your folder, and slide it across the table. I've been keeping a record, you say simply. He scans through it, just a few pages, enough to get the gist. Then he nods slowly. I heard her last night, he says, not looking up. Thought I was going to be sick. You say nothing, because this isn't triumph. This is truth. And truth is heavier than revenge. What do you want, he asks finally. You pause and smile. Nothing unfair, just the space to do my job, with no interference. He nods. I can work with that. By the time Riley wakes up, the sun is high and the whispers have started. Not just about what she said, about who heard her, about what you've been holding. You don't see her until checkout, and when you do, she looks different. Not disheveled, not panicked. Just slightly off, like someone who realizes the air has shifted but doesn't know why the room feels colder. You walk by her in the lobby. She meets your eyes. No smile this time. Just silence. You nod and keep walking, not because you've won, but because you don't need to fight anymore. The avalanche has already begun, and all you had to do was stop holding it back. 2 weeks later, you're invited to a leadership sync. It's not announced with fanfare, just a calendar ping. Subject line: product strategy brainstorm, extended team. You almost ignore it at first. These types of meetings often turn into echo chambers where the loudest voice wins and everyone else gets assigned the leftovers. But something's different this time. The invite list includes directors, heads of engineering, 2 senior VPs, and you, not Riley. You show up early, neutral colors, clean notes, your laptop fully charged, and your documents triple-checked. You don't know what to expect, only that this meeting feels like the first door you haven't had to pry open yourself. As people trickle in, they greet you differently. Not with over-enthusiastic praise, just quiet, respectful nods. A few, "Hey, good to see you here" comments. No one mentions the retreat. No one needs to. When the meeting starts, the VP running, it gestures toward the whiteboard. "I want fresh eyes on this. Not just experience, insight." Then he looks directly at you. "You've been leading from the background," he says. "Let's put that thinking out front." For a split second, you forget how to breathe. Then you speak. Slowly, clearly. Offering a framework you've been refining quietly for weeks. You reference real data. You fold in risk mitigation. You leave space for collaboration. By the time you finish, the room is leaning in. There's silence, then a few scattered nods. Then Andrew, the same VP who saw Riley unravel by the fire, closes his notebook. "I say we trial it," he says. She runs point. She runs point. The words echo like a bell in a cathedral. You don't flinch. You just write down your next steps. After the meeting, you return to your desk. Riley is there, sitting at her workstation not 10 feet from yours, staring at her screen like it betrayed her. She knows something happened, knows something shifted, but she doesn't know how much. She doesn't know this promotion was the company's soft correction, their quiet apology, their silent rebalancing of the scales. You don't gloat, but you feel it. The difference, the sudden absence of friction when you speak, the ease with which people now loop you in, the way your suggestions no longer vanish into inbox black holes. You've become real to them, tangible, trusted. That afternoon, Riley tries to strike. She walks by and says in a voice like warm syrup, "Congrats. Must feel nice to finally be noticed." You glance up, smile. It feels nice to finally be heard. She blinks, keeps walking, because she can't spin this, not without looking petty, not without revealing the cracks. And the best part, you didn't need to orchestrate her downfall. You didn't need to shout. You just did the work and refused to disappear. Later that week, an email circulates. Subject: department realignment. The message is brief, positive in tone, reframes everything as growth. But the meaning is clear. Riley's being shifted out of product strategy. No one says why, but everyone knows. She's being pulled off the stage, moved somewhere with less visibility, less impact, less opportunity to burn others to make herself look brighter. And you've got a seat at the table now. The real table. You don't take a selfie. Don't post it on LinkedIn. You just sit there, contribute, listen, lead. And as the week ends, you realize something unexpected. You're not just surviving anymore. You're finally building. Riley doesn't go quietly. You knew she wouldn't. Her entire identity is wrapped in the illusion of control. Losing isn't just inconvenient for her. It's existential. So when she starts digging, it doesn't surprise you. What surprises you is how clumsy she becomes. It starts with whispers, muted chatter among acquaintances you haven't spoken to in months, former coworkers from other companies who suddenly check in and ask strange, overly casual questions. You still using that old GitHub handle? "Hey, did you ever resolve that weird licensing thing back at Core Metrics?" Things no one should remember unless someone told them to look. You piece it together fast. Riley's hired someone. Not officially, of course, but a freelancer, a digital janitor, someone to sniff out skeletons and scrub the internet for leverage. She's trying to find dirt. She's gone full Oppo research. And it's laughable, because there's nothing to find. You've been careful. Your online footprint is clean. You haven't made enemies. Your last manager once called you relentlessly boring, and it might be the biggest compliment you've ever received in hindsight. Still, you know Riley. She doesn't stop at truth. She creates narrative. So you tighten up. You check your digital presence lockdown social accounts. Google yourself like a paranoid publicist. You make sure the story she's hunting doesn't exist. And yet she tries. You know she's behind it when a vague email arrives from an unknown address. We're doing a background review and would love your comments on past employment discrepancies. Please respond to verify. No logo, no context, just bait. You don't respond. You forward it to legal, then to IT. You document the timing, the tone, everything. And the next day you watch as Riley receives an unplanned meeting invite from the security and risk team. She walks in with her usual composed gait. She walks out, pale. You don't need to ask what happened. Because the moment you reported the phishing attempt, the dominoes started falling. It traced the source. Legal raised an eyebrow. And now her quiet little campaign has turned into an internal investigation. You didn't even have to push. She did it to herself. The next week, things go quiet. No more strange emails. No more whispers. Even Riley seems subdued still, at her desk still pretending to work, but her energy is off. Like a bird that just realized it's been flying toward a glass wall. And then the slip. At a Thursday department meeting, she tries to suggest an idea that unfortunately for her, you'd already written and submitted last week. When someone gently points this out, she stammers, shrugs. Guess I missed that memo, she says. You meet her eyes across the table. There's no anger in her anymore, only confusion, because she doesn't understand how she lost. She doesn't realize the moment she tried to bury you with lies, you quietly built a library of truths, that while she was looking for ghosts in your past, you were becoming undeniable in the present. The difference now is stark. She's guessing. You're executing. She's flailing. You're advancing. And the best part, you didn't have to become like her to win. You just had to stay solid, steady, true, and now the ground beneath her is doing what it always does when it's built on deceit. It's crumbling. The fall doesn't come with a bang. It starts with a stumble, small, almost invisible, but enough to tip the scales. Riley's in a mid-morning planning meeting, whiteboard marker in hand, explaining a rollout timeline for a feature she supposedly led. You're sitting quietly in the back row, not because you're unimportant, but because you've learned to watch where the light doesn't reach. She's breezing through the bullet points when her father, the CEO, walks in. Unexpected. He rarely attends these meetings, but today he folds into a corner seat, arms crossed, eyes unreadable. Riley keeps going, but her tone changes, more polished, more performative. She starts layering in jargon referencing metrics that sound vaguely impressive but lack substance. She gestures at the whiteboard like it's a TED Talk. Then she says your name. And while they executed the back end, I structured the roadmap and shepherded the milestone reviews. You blink. The room goes still, because everyone knows that's not true. You built the roadmap. You drove the milestone reviews. You coordinated the pivot when engineering hit a blocker. The project wouldn't exist without your quiet, consistent labor. You feel the heat rise in your chest, but you say nothing, because this time you don't need to. The CEO clears his throat. Riley freezes. I thought the roadmap came from the product sync on March 10th, he says mildly. She pauses. Well, yes, technically, but He lifts a hand, because I remember reviewing it, and I'm pretty sure it had your name's initials in the footer. Silence. He doesn't press it further. He doesn't have to. Riley blinks, offers a tight smile. Of course, I mean it was collaborative. The meeting moves on, but the damage is done. For the first time, she's been caught lying in front of the one person she's always been protected by. And now he sees it. Not just the embellishment, the pattern. Later that day, you receive a message from his executive assistant. Would love to grab 15 minutes with you this afternoon. CEO would like your input on the Q4 roadmap. You reread the message twice. Then you smile. Not because it's validation, not because you crave power, but because this meeting isn't about him getting your input. It's about him finally seeing whose input matters. You meet with him in his glass-walled office. He's polite, direct. He asks clear, thoughtful questions about your process, about team dynamics, about where communication might have broken down. You answer evenly. No character assassination. No accusations. Just clarity. You leave the meeting with a handshake and a subtle nod of approval. And in the reflection of the office glass, you catch Riley at her desk watching. She knows. You're no longer the problem she needs to eliminate. You're the presence she can't escape. The next week your calendar fills. More invitations, more influence. You're looped in early on strategy meetings, consulted on timelines, asked to approve things that used to be filtered through 3 other people. Riley's name appears less and less, not gone, just fading. And her father? He doesn't shield her anymore. He doesn't need to say anything. He's already shifted his gaze. And in this world, that's everything. It happens in the hallway, of course it does. Not a boardroom, not a summit. Just a quiet corridor between conference rooms where the real power shifts always seem to take place. You're heading toward a late strategy debrief when she steps out from around the corner, almost like she's been waiting. Riley. No audience this time, no champagne glass, no polished performance. Just her. She's wearing her usual effortlessly expensive outfit, but there's something different in her eyes. Something brittle, like glass pretending to be stone. Got a minute, she asks, voice light. You nod. Barely. You already know this isn't small talk. She steps in closer, just outside earshot of the others, crosses her arms, looks you up and down, not with mockery, not with that usual calculating glare, but with something harder to name. You win, she says. You don't answer. You don't need to. She laughs, but it's hollow. You know, I really thought I had you back then. I thought I could shape the game around you, push you out, cut the noise before anyone else noticed you were the one doing the real work. Silence stretches between you. Then she adds, it's weird, right? How you can be so careful and still lose. You raise an eyebrow. You weren't careful. You were cruel. She blinks. Maybe she expected sympathy or pity, but you're done offering those things. You give her what she never gave you, the truth. I didn't come here to win anything, you continue, voice low. I came here to work, to build, to contribute. You're the one who turned this into a competition. She opens her mouth, then closes it again. The hallway feels heavier now. She takes a breath. For a second, you almost think she'll apologize. Instead, she offers a bitter smile. Don't get comfortable, she says. Places like this, they don't stay loyal forever. You nod. Good thing I never asked for loyalty, just fairness. Her jaw tightens. You can see at the storm behind her eyes the 1,000 things she wants to say, but knows she can't. Not anymore. Then she leans in, voice barely audible. You got lucky. You don't flinch. No, I got smart. And with that, you turn. You leave her standing there, still trying to write the last scene of a story she doesn't control anymore. Back in the meeting, your presence is effortless now. You're not trying to prove anything. You're just there offering value, leading where needed, stepping back when others shine. You're not performing. You're just being, and the room feels it. Riley doesn't attend. She hasn't been invited. Not that she'd say so out loud. Later that evening, as you pack up your bag, a junior associate walks past your desk. She pauses. I saw her talking to you earlier, she says carefully. Everything okay? You nod. It will be. She hesitates, then adds, thanks for sticking it out. A lot of us noticed, even if we didn't say anything. You smile, not a triumphant one. A real one, because maybe the quiet ones were watching all along. And maybe that's how change starts, not in grand announcements, but in silent shifts. In people deciding quietly not to let this happen again. You power down your screen. Another long day behind you. But this time you leave the office not exhausted, just light. The email comes at 7:42 a.m. sharp. You're not even at your desk yet, just halfway through a bagel, scrolling through your phone in the kitchen, when the subject line stops you cold. Urgent misuse of company funds. Documentation attached. You open it. It's anonymous. No greeting, no signature. Just a few lines and a zipped folder full of internal reports and screenshots. And at the top of the email, you didn't hear this from me, but if she's going down, she should go down for the right reasons. You open the files, scanning them with one eye while sipping coffee like it's just another Tuesday. But what you see changes everything. Expense reports. Dozens of them. Lunches logged as department morale events that never happened. Spa receipts coded as executive planning sessions. Flights to personal events charged as client travel. Some in Riley's name. Some through proxy people under her who likely had no idea their names were used. It's methodical. And it's unmistakable. She didn't just sabotage reputations, she stole. Subtly, consistently, for months. You lean back in your chair, heart slow but steady. This isn't a vendetta anymore. It's a breach of trust so deep that no last name, no legacy can protect it. You sit with it for a while, not out of hesitation, but because this moment matters. Not for her, for you. You forward the package to legal and finance, attaching a brief note. This came to me anonymously. The documentation appears to involve fraudulent use of company funds. I am not the source nor involved. I'm simply passing it to the correct departments. You leave it at that. By 10:30, you receive a response from compliance received. Thank you. We'll handle it from here. You don't hear much for the next 48 hours. No explosion, no confrontation, just quiet. Then on Friday morning, you notice Riley's calendar has gone completely blank. Meetings vanish. Her Slack profile switches to limited availability. Her desk is still there, but untouched. You don't ask questions, but whispers ripple across the building. Someone in accounting lets it slip in the break room. Something about a spending audit. Someone else saw her in a closed-door meeting with legal. Eyes red, voice sharp. You don't join the gossip. You don't need to. Because truth once revealed doesn't need an advocate. It just needs space. You step outside during lunch. The air is crisp, cleaner than it's felt in weeks. You walk a few quiet blocks, no destination, just breathing. This isn't satisfaction. This is relief. Because now the lies are no longer shadows behind you. They're out in the open, burning. You sit on a bench, watch a dog wrestle with a stick twice its size. Think about everything you endured. Not just the sabotage, but the doubt, the erosion of self-trust. And you realize that while Riley was trying to remove you from the story, you were becoming the author of your own. This email, this leak, it wasn't revenge. It was a reckoning. And sometimes you don't need to be the one who brings down the wall. You just need to be the one who stopped propping it up. And now, it's quiet again. Not just outside your office window where the city hum fades to a whisper as the sun dips below the skyline, but inside you too. The part of you that was always bracing for the next blow no longer flinches. Riley is gone, not in handcuffs, not escorted out, just absent. A voluntary transition, they said. A mutual decision. The kind of exit only someone with a legacy name gets. But her absence is loud. The air feels easier to breathe. Meetings run cleaner. Ideas stretch their limbs without the shadow of sabotage. No one throws a parade. No one names you a hero. And you don't need them to. Because this wasn't about revenge. It was about returning to yourself the part of you that once believed work could be meaningful, that effort mattered more than politics. That truth, quiet, patient, undeniable, always rises. You still sit at the same desk. You still sip the same bland office coffee. But now when someone says your name in a meeting, it sticks. Now when you speak, people lean in not out of politeness, but out of trust. You didn't just keep your job. You kept your integrity. And somewhere along the way you found something Riley never had. Respect that wasn't inherited. Influence that wasn't stolen. Peace that wasn't faked. Some nights you still think about it all. The hallway confrontations, the screenshots, the long, slow climb back from invisibility. And then you breathe, softly, steadily. Because not every victory comes with applause. Sometimes the quiet ones are the deepest. And some nights just lying still and breathing softly is enough to return home to yourself.